A biblical-level plague is now hit Mecca. The question being asked, is this a divine message?
Strange insects have invaded Mecca, striking fear into the hearts of Muslims worldwide. Social media is buzzing with claims that these insects encroached on the Holy Prophet Muhammad's grave and the Islamic praying ground after a heavy downpour. Some say they were cockroaches, others suggest crickets or locusts, but most lean toward locusts. The mystery deepens. Is this a natural occurrence, or could it be a divine sign, perhaps even a judgment for Muslims?
What's happening right now in Mecca is beyond belief. The holiest city in Islam has been swarmed by a catastrophic plague of locusts during the holy month of Ramadan.
Join us as we delve into the unsettling invasion that rattled the heart of Mecca. In the heart of the Islamic world, there lies a structure of profound significance, enveloped in centuries of devotion and reverence. This is the Kaaba, the holiest site in Islam, nestled within the expanses of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. But what makes the Kaaba so significant in Islam? To understand this, we must journey back to its origins, rooted in Islamic tradition. Believed to be the first house of worship for mankind, it was constructed by the Prophet Ibrahim and his son Ismail, otherwise known as Abraham and Ishmael, based on instructions from God himself. According to Islamic tradition, the angel Jibril or Gabriel brought the black stone, which is currently situated at the eastern corner of the Kaaba, while the structure was being built. This stone is considered one of the few remnants of the original structure built by Ibrahim. But recently, the Kaaba witnessed an unprecedented event, a locust swarm invasion. Could this extraordinary occurrence be a mere natural phenomenon, or does it carry a deeper, more symbolic meaning in the context of Islamic tradition? To begin with, the story of the Kaaba is not just a tale of religious symbolism, it is a narrative etched into the very fabric of Islamic history. Historically, the Kaaba has witnessed numerous reconstructions due to various reasons, including damage and maintenance. Notably, in 608 CE, the Quraysh tribe, rulers of pre-Islamic Mecca, rebuilt the Kaaba using wood and masonry blocks. This reconstruction reflected the Kaaba's evolving architecture over centuries. Before the rise of Islam, the Kaaba was a significant site for Bedouin tribes across the Arabian Peninsula, serving as a holy site where they worshipped their gods. The pivotal transformation of the Kaaba occurred during Prophet Muhammad's era. Initially, the Kaaba housed statues of pagan deities and was a site for both pagan and Christian tribes for annual pilgrimage. However, following the advent of Islam and subsequent events, including the Prophet's triumphant return to Mecca in 630 CE, the Kaaba was dedicated solely to the worship of Allah, becoming the focal point of Islamic worship and pilgrimage. Throughout history, the Kaaba has endured and been restored multiple times. For instance, it was severely damaged in 683 CE during a siege of Mecca, leading to its reconstruction, which included the inclusion of the Hatim, an adjacent semicircular wall. The Umayyads in 692 CE also played a role in its rebuilding, and in 1626, following a flood that damaged the Kaaba, it was reconstructed with granite stones from Mecca. Since then, its appearance has remained largely the same. But why do these expansions matter? In essence, they are manifestations of the enduring relevance of the Kaaba and the Grand Mosque in the Islamic world. From its early periods under the Rashidun and Umayyad caliphs, the congregational mosque has been a central point for the Islamic community. Today, the Kaaba has evolved to accommodate the community's needs and the millions of worshippers who visit it every day, reflecting the growing global Muslim community's desire to connect with this ancient sacred site. In a startling turn of events, the sacred tranquility of this holiest site was shattered. A massive swarm of locusts descended upon Mecca, engulfing the city's Grand Mosque in a scene that appeared apocalyptic. The sight of these insects swarming around the cleaners and worshippers within the very precincts where millions of pilgrims congregate each year was both shocking and ominous. But what could have prompted such an extraordinary occurrence at this most revered of locations? The locusts, identified as migratory black grasshoppers, manifested in staggering numbers, compelling authorities at Islam's holiest site to initiate an extensive cleaning operation. The response was immediate and decisive. Specialized teams, amounting to 22 in number and comprising 138 individuals, were dispatched to manage this unforeseen crisis.
The Times of Israel reported that authorities in Mecca said specialized teams have been directed to work in the fight to eliminate the insects.
This concerted effort underscored the urgency and severity of the situation, with the authorities in Mecca emphasizing the need to expedite the eradication of the insects to ensure the safety and comfort of the guests of God's house. The behavior and characteristics of these locusts are central to understanding the magnitude of the event. Typically, desert locusts emerge following periods of heavy rainfall succeeding droughts. They feed on new-growth foliage, laying eggs in moist soil. The proximity of other locusts, coupled with sensory stimulation, triggers a dramatic transformation in these creatures. From being solitary, green, and nocturnal, they morph into larger black and yellow insects, actively seeking out their kind, a phenomenon known as gregarization. These changes result in the formation of vast swarms, which then feed voraciously on abundant vegetation, their increased metabolic activity and longer wings enabling them to travel extensive distances in search of new foliage and favorable weather conditions. This particular invasion in Mecca can be traced back to ecological conditions that facilitated an explosive increase in locust numbers. In 2018, two cyclones, Mekunu and Luban, created ideal breeding grounds for locusts in the Arabian desert. These cyclones, symptomatic of the increased cyclone activity in the Persian Gulf region, a consequence of climate change, led to the formation of ephemeral lakes in the Rub al-Khali. This allowed for 3 generations of locusts to breed over a 9-month period, inflating their numbers approximately 8,000-fold. The impact of this locust invasion was not confined to the environmental sphere alone. Social media footage captured the locusts swarming within Mecca, evoking shock and awe among residents and locals. The locusts swept through the center of the city from the north before being controlled in the east. This event, while deeply unsettling, highlighted the resilience and preparedness of Saudi authorities, who successfully controlled and eradicated the swarm. Nevertheless, the occurrence of such infestations has been a recurring problem in the kingdom in recent years. As we reflect on this extraordinary event, questions arise about its broader implications. Could this natural phenomenon hold deeper spiritual or environmental significance? In a city where every occurrence is often seen through a lens of faith and symbolism, the invasion of locusts at such a sacred site prompts contemplation about the delicate balance between nature, spirituality, and human intervention. For starters, how does climate change factor into this phenomenon? Unseasonal weather conditions, particularly the increased frequency and intensity of cyclones in the Arabian Peninsula, have been a direct result of shifts in global weather patterns. The warming of the Indian Ocean, a key component of the broader climatic system affected by global warming, has altered the cyclone formation patterns. This shift has not only increased cyclone activity over the last decade in regions like the Persian Gulf, which previously experienced very few cyclones, but has also led to extreme weather events, such as heavy rainfall in arid regions. The impact of these climatic anomalies on locust behavior is profound. Locusts, which typically live in solitary and are relatively harmless in this state, undergo a dramatic transformation under certain environmental conditions. Following heavy rains and the subsequent growth of vegetation, these insects breed exponentially and change behavior and physiology, a process known as phase polyphonism. The solitary phase locusts become gregarious, forming large swarms that can travel vast distances in search of food. This behavioral shift is triggered by increased tactile stimulation as locust populations grow, leading to a cascade of changes in their nervous system that prompts them to swarm. The breeding and swarming behavior of locusts is thus closely tied to environmental factors. After breeding in moist soil, the locust's eggs hatch, and the nymphs, known as hoppers, begin to form bands. These bands grow and eventually merge into swarms as the locusts mature. The swarms are highly mobile and can cover great distances, devastating crops and vegetation in their path. The ability of locusts to rapidly increase their numbers and spread over large areas makes them one of the most destructive migratory pests in the world. The impact of climate change on locust invasions is a subject of growing concern. As global temperatures rise, the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, such as cyclones and heavy rains, are expected to increase. These conditions provide ideal breeding grounds for locusts, leading to larger and more frequent swarms. The invasion in Mecca was a stark reminder of the potential consequences of climate change on pest outbreaks. However, while the authorities attributed the locust swarm incident to ecological factors, various speculative theories emerged that blend conjecture and suspicion. For example, one prevalent theory posits that the invasion was not a natural occurrence, but a meticulously orchestrated geopolitical maneuver. Proponents argue that advanced bioengineering technology could have been employed to induce a locust swarm, manipulating their breeding and swarming behavior. Such an act, according to this theory, could serve multiple purposes, destabilizing the region, disrupting the annual pilgrimage, and exerting psychological warfare. A more ecological-centric theory proposes that the locust invasion was a natural response to human-induced environmental imbalances. Proponents argue that rampant industrialization, deforestation, and climate change have disrupted natural ecosystems, leading to erratic behavior in various species, including locusts. This perspective views the invasion as a wake-up call for humanity to address its detrimental impact on the environment and to re-evaluate its relationship with nature. Finally, in a more religiously inclined narrative, some view the locust invasion as a precursor to the end times, a sign of the approaching Day of Judgment as described in Islamic eschatology. Proponents of this view often reference Quranic verses and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad that describe signs preceding the end times, including extraordinary natural phenomena. This theory has gained traction among certain groups who view current global events through the lens of prophecy and divine signaling. In the Islamic world, natural phenomena such as locust swarms are often viewed through the lens of religious interpretation. For Muslims, events like these are not merely ecological occurrences, but can be perceived as signs from Allah. The Holy Quran and Islamic tradition offer insights into how such natural events are understood within the faith. For instance, locusts hold a particular significance in Islamic tradition, as they are mentioned in the Quran. These insects were one of the plagues sent by Allah to Pharaoh's Egypt, as a warning and a lesson for those who strayed from the path of righteousness. Another verse explains that the emergence and gathering of locusts in massive amounts serve as a reminder of the day of resurrection. On this day, it is believed that people who have died will emerge from the ground and run in a specific direction, similar to the movement of locust swarms. In verse 54:7, this comparison is drawn vividly, depicting the sheer number and sudden appearance of locusts as a metaphor for the Day of Judgment. For example, a desert locust swarm can cover up to 1,200 square kilometers, containing 40 to 80 million locusts per square kilometer. This comparison frames these creatures as potential bearers of a divine message, drawing parallels between the natural phenomenon and significant spiritual events. Such interpretations can prompt deep reflection and contemplation within the Muslim community. In Islam, there is a strong emphasis on seeking knowledge and understanding the signs of Allah in the universe. For example, the Prophet Muhammad is reported to have encouraged Muslims to reflect upon natural phenomena, to seek knowledge about them, and to see them as signs of Allah's majesty and wisdom. The occurrence of locusts, then, becomes a point of intersection between faith and reason, between spiritual reflection and environmental awareness. Could this intersection be where we find answers to some of the most pressing questions of our time? In the context of locust swarms and other unexpected natural occurrences, Islamic scholars and theologians often engage in a discourse that goes beyond scientific explanations. They explore how such events align with Islamic teachings on the temporary nature of the world and the inevitability of the Day of Judgment. In Islamic eschatology, the approach of the end times is marked by a series of minor and major signs. While locust swarms are not explicitly mentioned as a sign of the end times in primary Islamic sources, the occurrence of unusual and extraordinary natural events is often interpreted as a reminder of the nearing of the final hour. In contrast, when we turn our gaze to Christianity, the appearance of locusts carries a different connotation, steeped in biblical history and prophecy. The Christian Bible, particularly in its Old Testament, references locusts in various contexts, often as symbols of destruction and divine wrath. Could the locust invasion in Mecca be seen through a similar lens as a form of divine messaging or a fulfillment of prophecy in the Christian tradition? Locusts in the Christian Bible are prominently featured as one of the 10 plagues inflicted upon Egypt in the book of Exodus. Here, like in the Quran, locusts are agents of divine punishment, sent to devastate the land as a consequence of Pharaoh's stubbornness and refusal to free the Israelites. This event has been etched into the collective memory of Christian tradition as a powerful example of God's intervention in human affairs. Another significant reference to locusts in the Bible appears in the book of Revelation, where they are described in a prophetic vision, symbolizing impending judgment and devastation. These locusts are not ordinary insects, but are depicted with features that are both terrifying and symbolic, such as human faces and scorpion tails. This apocalyptic imagery stirs the imagination and has been a subject of intense interpretation and debate among Christian theologians and scholars. Are these locusts a metaphor for impending doom, a call for repentance, or a representation of the transformative power of divine judgment? The book of Revelation, with its vivid and symbolic imagery, often serves as a lens through which such events are viewed and interpreted within the Christian tradition. The depiction of locusts in this book is not just a literal description, but is laden with metaphorical and prophetic significance, suggesting a time of great trial and tribulation on earth. In Christian eschatology, the end times are marked by a series of cataclysmic events, and natural disasters often take a prominent place in this narrative. The locust invasion, seen through this apocalyptic lens, can be interpreted as a precursor to these end times. While Christianity does not place a specific theological significance on the location of Mecca, the unprecedented nature of the event in a place of such religious importance to another faith could be seen as a significant sign. Furthermore, the Christian perspective often views such natural disasters as not just punishments, but also as calls for repentance and spiritual awakening. This interpretation is rooted in the belief that God uses various means, including natural phenomena, to communicate with humanity, to warn them, and to steer them back to the right path. The locust invasion at the Kaaba in Mecca not only stands as a significant event in contemporary times, but also echoes similar phenomena that have occurred throughout history. But what can history teach us about these occurrences? Are there patterns or lessons that can be gleaned from past experiences? One notable historical incident of an insect invasion at a religious site is the case of the Mormon cricket invasions in the United States in the 19th century. These events, particularly the 1848 invasion in Utah, are of significant historical and religious importance to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. According to LDS Church history, the crops of the early Mormon settlers in the Salt Lake Valley were threatened by a devastating invasion of these crickets. The event took on a religious significance when, reportedly, flocks of seagulls arrived and devoured the crickets, thus saving the crops. This incident, known as the Miracle of the Gulls, is often recounted as a divine intervention, a testament to faith and perseverance. How does this compare to the locust invasion in Mecca? Both events share the theme of faith communities interpreting natural phenomena as signs or interventions from a higher power. Turning our gaze to locust plagues in history, there have been numerous significant events that parallel the recent invasion in Mecca. One such event is the locust plague that struck the American Midwest in 1874. Known as the Rocky Mountain locust outbreak, this was one of the most destructive natural disasters in American history. The locusts ravaged farmlands, leading to widespread famine and economic hardship. The scale and impact of this event were unprecedented, akin to the shock and awe caused by the locust swarm in Mecca. But what lessons did such historical plagues teach us? They highlighted the vulnerability of human societies to natural phenomena and underscored the importance of understanding ecological systems and patterns. Another historical parallel can be drawn with the locust plague in Egypt in 1915, which devastated crops and contributed to a severe famine during World War I. The scale of this invasion and its impact on food security and the economy bear similarities to other significant locust outbreaks, including the recent one in Mecca. These events underscore the fragility of human constructs in the face of nature's might. They also highlight the recurring nature of such phenomena, suggesting a cyclic pattern that transcends time and geographical boundaries. Furthermore, The examination of past locust invasions reveals critical insights into how societies have responded and adapted to these challenges. For instance, the response to the 1915 Egyptian plague involved organized efforts to combat the locusts, ranging from physical removal methods to the early forms of biological control. These efforts laid the groundwork for modern pest control strategies and emphasized the need for preparedness and rapid response in the face of such ecological crises. How does this compare to the response to the locust invasion in Mecca? The swift and organized response in Mecca reflects a progression in our understanding and ability to manage such crises. Yet it also highlights the continuing challenge posed by these natural events. Intriguingly, these historical incidents of insect invasions, especially at religious sites, often coincide with periods of significant social or political change. They seem to act as catalysts for transformation, prompting societies to reevaluate their practices, beliefs, and approaches to the natural world. This raises the question: do these events merely occur randomly, or do they hold deeper significance, acting as harbingers of change or reflections of the state of human society and its relationship with nature? Thanks for watching this episode of Beyond Discovery. Don't miss the video you see on your screen. You won't believe it.